So now to best understand semi-join and anti-join, I've went ahead and I've changed this name to Richard. Okay, let's just run this, and so now our max data looks like this, and our age data it's something that looks like this. Okay, so I went ahead and I've changed this name to Richard. Okay, so what we want to do now, we want to demonstrate semi-join, right? So what semi-join does is that we are going to pass in age data, okay, and say this other data is max data, okay, and we're gonna say by name. So what happens in this case is that the rows of age data, right, that we want to return are the ones that have a corresponding name in max data. Okay, so if we try to run this, you observe that it has looked at these two data and say from age data you have Alex, Jacob, and John. If you go to max data, you have Alex, Jacob, and Richard, but because from age data you only had Alex and Jacob, so only return those rows that have a corresponding, so that have the same corresponding name from this other data set. So that is how semi-join works, right? So if we use anti-join, it will be the opposite. So if you say anti, so if we say here instead of semi, we're going to say anti, right? And run this, you observed that it has returned the rows of age data that do not have the corresponding name in this data, and that name is John, right? You can observe that within these two we have Alex. For age data we have Alex, Jacob, and John. And if we look into the max data, we have Alex, Jacob, and Richard. So what has happened is that it has returned the rows of age data that do not have a corresponding name. Okay, so if we now want to look into inner join, we're going to say inner join, right? And we say age data, right? So let's say, so now let's say you said anti-join, right? And you said max data, and you say age data, and you say by name, and you run this. You observed that it has gone to this data and said, return to me the rows that are not contained in both data, which is what? Richard. Okay, so that is anti-join. If we were to switch the data frames, right, it will go to max data and say return to me those rows that do not have a corresponding name. So when the name is not the same, so when the name is not in this other data. Okay, so now let us look into inner join, right? So if we use inner join, right, and we say we pass on max data and we pass in age data and we say by equals name. So what this does is that it will do the inner join of the two data sets, right? So as we know, inner join, it will only return only the matching rows, which is Alex and Jacob, because John and Richard do not match, right? They are not contained in both cases. So those names do not match. So what it's going to do is it's going to return only Alex and Jacob. It's going to only match Alex and Jacob, right? So now let's say we also wanted to know about left join and right join. So what left join does is that it will retain the rows that we will pass here and say h data and say max data and say by equals to name. And if you run this, you observe that we are getting the error because we are supposed to use left join. Sometimes I make errors, but if we run this, you observe that it has retained all the rows that are contained in these data sets. Okay, and for this other data set only returns the matching one. So that is why you do not see Richard, because Richard is only on max data and this does not match. So you can see that it has filled this value with an NA value, right? So in order to do that, we can also use right join, right? And if you run this, you observe now that it has these two are matching in both data sets, but we want to return everything from the second data set, which is max data. That is why you see Richard here, but Richard's age does not match the other one. We only have Mark. So that is how left and right join works. We also have full join. So what will full join do? Let me just say what will full join do is that it will retain all rows that are contained in both data sets. So this is a simple example of how we can do matching of data frames using the dplyr functions.